Good morning, dear learners. Welcome to our lesson for today. We are looking at Black consciousness in South Africa, 1960s to 1970s. Now, when looking at Black consciousness, there is a basic overview of the exam guideline, and it focuses on challenges that occurred in South Africa in the early 1970s. Looks at the aims of the Black consciousness. Also going to focus on the roles of Steve Biko in the Black consciousness movement, expression of the Black consciousness in South Africa. Now, also going to look at the impact of the philosophy of Black consciousness on student movements, reasons for the 1976 Soweto uprising, impact of the Soweto uprising, reaction of the apartheid state to the Black consciousness movement, and Steve Biko, the impact of the Black consciousness and Steve Biko to the South African politics. Now, you will notice that the aims of Black consciousness are actually summarized by Steve Biko in his definition, and you will notice that in his aims for the Black consciousness started off as an attitude that was actually addressing the mind rather than a political movement. So you'll notice that Steve Biko defines Black consciousness as he says it defines Black and all those oppressed by apartheid. So now, looking at the aims of Black consciousness, it aimed at raising Black confidence to bring about liberation. That is number one. It aimed at Black confidence to bring about liberation. Now, it also aimed at promoting Black identity, culture, and history. So you'll notice that it also focused on challenging the white liberals and promoting the Black unity. I will come again on the aims of the Black consciousness. It aimed at promoting or bringing about confidence about liberation, promoting pride in Black identity, culture, and history. It also meant challenging the white liberals and promoting Black unity. Those were the major aims of the Black consciousness. Now, Steve Biko defines Black consciousness. In essence, he says it is the realization by the Black man of the need to rally together with his brothers around the cause of their oppression. Now, he says the blackness of their skin and to operate as a group in order to rid themselves of the shackles that bind them to perpetual servitude. So Black consciousness, he says, it seeks to demonstrate the lie that Black is an aberration or a deviation from the normal being the whites. So the Black consciousness, according to Steve Biko, he likes to define it as the Black people coming together, trying to normalize the situation that was always referred to as the white people being them that are actually the normal people as compared to the Black people. Now, the establishment of South African student organizations, this was led by Steve Biko. That actually goes on the roles of Steve Biko. So you'll notice that in July 1971, the SASO policy manifesto stated that the SASO, standing for South African Student Organization. So now, the Black consciousness is an attitude of mind and a way of life. That is number one. That was what was stated on the SASO manifesto, that the Black consciousness is an attitude of mind, a way of life. So Black consciousness is supposed to be a way of life and an attitude of mind. Because remember, Biko states that the power of the oppressor is in the mind of the oppressed. So meaning that he wanted to bring about an attitude of mind and a way of life as the Black consciousness. Now, number two on the manifesto states that the basic tenet of Black consciousness is that the Black man must reject all value systems that seek to make him a foreigner in the country of his birth and reduce his basic dignity. So basically, black people had lost their dignity, and Steve Biko seeks to bring back the dignity that the black people had actually lost in the black consciousness. Remember, black consciousness is talking about awareness, black awareness, black pride. Now, the black man must build up his own value systems, see himself as self-defined and not really defined by others. Meaning, the concept of a black man had its own definition from different perspectives. But Steve Biko wants people to understand, or the black man in particular, to understand and build his own value systems and see himself as self-defined and not as defined by others. Now, the black consciousness movement was influenced by international organizations. Black Power in the USA, International Youth Revolt of 1960, Independence Movement in Africa. So the black consciousness had many other movements that influenced it. Thus, looking at the Black Power movement that took place in America, in the USA, that actually also brought about some form of motivation to the black people in South Africa. You will notice that in America it is referred to as the civil rights movement, but when it comes to the Afrocentric point of view, it is referred to as the civil resistance, which is actually led by Steve Biko. Now, these movements actually were growing, and the international community was criticizing South Africa because of its apartheid regime. Now, the black consciousness movement focused on students, it focused also on workers, it focused also on the communities. So you'll notice that in 1972, SASO established the Black People's Convention, BPC, which included students, basically South African students movement, which was also another group that was called the SASISM or SASIM. SASM. Now, there was a South African students movement. All these groups were now emanating the SASO that was formed by Steve Biko in the Black Consciousness movement. So, SASIM would play an important role in the Soweto uprising. Black Allied Workers Union will also have the Black Community Project, economic cooperatives, literacy campaigns, health projects, cultural forums. So you'll notice that there was a lot of organizations that were formed by the Black Consciousness movement, and that was spearheaded by Steve Biko. Now you'll notice that on the aims of Black consciousness, their main aim is to conscientize people, make them aware of what was happening in South Africa during that time. Now, that is basically on the aims of the Black consciousness. So if you have got questions, if you've got comments, please comment on the link below. But if this tutorial benefited you, just give it a thumbs up, and I hope you enjoyed the lesson. The things that you need to understand, that it was focusing on the aims of the Black consciousness, the formation of the Black consciousness, who led the Black consciousness, and the impact of Black consciousness on student movements. So you notice that this is our source-based question in paper 2. So in paper 2, Black consciousness is examined as a source-based question, and as a source-based question, it comes in different forms. It can talk about the nature of the Black consciousness, can talk about the aims of the Black consciousness, can talk about the influence that the Black consciousness had on student movements in South Africa. Thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing this video. If you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up. Thank you, and all developments are welcome. Thank you.